In contrast to the Drifty hypothesis, the Drifty hypothesis suggests that the prevalence of these Drifty genes is not because of efficient energy storage, but because of genetic drift. Genetic drift is the change in allele frequencies within a population over time due to random shift and variation. For body weight and body fat percentage, it is important to know what dictated this in the past and still does in many animals today. It was most likely balanced by the risk of starvation on the lower limit and the risk of predation at the higher limit. As you can imagine, an obese caveman would have a hard time escaping a far fitter predator. In human evolutionary history, a few events drastically lowered the threat of predators. The first being living in groups and social behavior, namely looking out for each other, helped detect predators and protect against them. And contributing to this was the discovery of fire and tools to be able to fight predators off. Together, they decreased the risk of predation, and by doing so, the upper limit for body weight was basically eliminated. Genes, which would have been detrimental for our ancestors with the threat of a fierce saber-toothed tiger visiting their cave, have been allowed to develop and were carried across generations, especially since small populations, such as those of the early humans, are much more susceptible to genetic drift because it allows for greater fluctuations in allele frequencies. Because there was no selective pressure for those genes, the Drifty hypothesis explains why some people are more susceptible for weight gain than others, since not everyone inherited those genes. Genes by themselves are not enough to cause obesity. In order to fulfill your upper limit body weight, an abundance of calories are needed, and that's exactly what became possible after the agricultural development. Therefore, we don't see obese cavemen or hunters-gatherers, but we do see obesity already thousands of years ago, for example in the Greeks. Of course, having access to unlimited food and becoming obese was a privilege only a few could afford. However, in our modern-day Western society, with an abundance of food, genetic predisposition due to genetic drift, and no selective pressure against obesity, the obesity epidemic was born, according to this model.